Hey there, beautiful people. Welcome back to The Dang Good Show. I'm your host, Christine Dang, but you can call me CDang. Today, we're diving into something that might hit close to home for many of us, the new loneliness epidemic. It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? We're living in the most connected time in human history. With just a few taps on our phones, we can video chat with someone on the other side of the world, keep up with hundreds of friends on social media, and join communities of people who share our most niche interests. Yet, despite all this connectivity, research is showing that we're experiencing unprecedented levels of loneliness and social isolation. The U.S. Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health crisis, stating that the mortality impact of social disconnection is similar to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. That's not just surprising, it's alarming. So what's going on here? How can we be so connected yet feel so alone? And more importantly, what can we do about it? That's exactly what we're exploring in today's episode. I'm particularly passionate about this topic because I've experienced this modern loneliness myself, and I've seen it affect so many people I care about. Whether you're feeling a bit disconnected yourself or you're concerned about someone in your life, I hope today's conversation offers some insight, comfort, and practical steps forward. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into understanding and addressing this new loneliness epidemic. Let's start by getting clear on what we mean by loneliness. It's not the same as being alone. In fact, you can feel deeply lonely in a room full of people, and you can feel perfectly content when you're by yourself. Loneliness is the gap between social connections you have and social connections you need. It's a subjective feeling of disconnection or isolation, and it's actually a natural signal, similar to hunger or thirst, that alerts us to a basic human need that isn't being met. The latest research from Harvard shows that this loneliness epidemic has been growing for decades, but it accelerated dramatically during the pandemic. According to a 2023 study, more than half of the young adults report feeling lonely on a regular basis, and it's not just affecting young people. This cuts across all age groups, demographics, and socioeconomic backgrounds. What makes modern-day loneliness unique is that it's happening despite, and in some ways because of, our hyper-connected world. The quality of our connections has changed, and we're having fewer face-to-face interactions, fewer deep conversations, and fewer meaningful shared experiences. A fascinating study from the MIT Social Lab found that online interactions don't provide the same neurological satisfactions as in-person connections. When we meet in person, our brains releases a cocktail of feel-good chemicals like oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, that we simply don't get from most digital interactions. Another factor is what researchers call social comparison. When we scroll through social media, we're bombarded with carefully curated highlights from others' lives, leading us to compare our complete reality with all its messy, boring, and difficult moments to others' highlight reels. This can leave us feeling like everyone else has deeper connections, more fun, and better relationships than we do, even when that's not the case. And here's something else that's changed. Modern life has dismantled many of the traditional structures that used to provide built-in communities. Things like local clubs and stable neighborhoods where people lived for decades. The result? We've gained freedom and mobility, but we've lost many of the automatic contacts for deep connections. The effects of chronic loneliness go far beyond just feeling sad or disconnected. The science on this is really eye-opening. Dr. Julian Holt-Lanster's research, published in prestigious journals like Perspectives on Psychological Science, shows that the health risk of chronic loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day or having alcohol use disorder. It increases the risk of premature deaths by 26%, which is comparable to the risk of obesity. Isn't that just wild? But how does a feeling end up affecting our physical health? Well, loneliness triggers our body's stress response, increasing inflammation and wear and tear on our cardiovascular system. Now, chronically lonely people have higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol and show reduced immune function. Now, there's a powerful mental health component. Loneliness is strongly linked to depression, anxiety, and even cognitive decline. Yeah, you heard me. According to analysis of data from multiple NIA-funded population-based studies, feeling lonely increases the risk of dementia by 31%. Now, you might be wondering if this is simply correlation rather than causation. Maybe people who are already struggling with health issues become more isolated rather than isolation causing health problems. But studies have followed people over time have shown that healthy individuals who become socially isolated develop health issues at higher rates than those who maintain strong social connections. What's particularly concerning about the current loneliness epidemic is how it's affecting young people. We tend to think loneliness as primarily affecting the elderly, but recent data shows that Gen Z and millennials report higher rates of loneliness than any other age group. A survey by Cigna found that 79% of Gen Z respondents reported feeling lonely compared to 71% of millennials and 50% of baby boomers. This suggests that something fundamental has shifted in how our society functions and how we connect with each other. And addressing this isn't about feeling better emotionally. It's about protecting our long-term physical and mental health. Enjoying what you're hearing? Fantastic! To make sure you're always in the loop with the latest episode, just hit that subscribe button. Your support makes all the difference. And hey, this podcast thrives because of awesome listeners like you. So a big shout out for that. And of course, I'm on Instagram. Find and follow me at Christine_Dang. Lastly, looking for more information on what we discussed today? Just cruise on over to thedangoodshow.com, click on the episode you're curious about, and voila, access to the show notes. Now, without further ado, let's jump back into the show. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Our digital lives and how they're affecting our sense of connection. I want to be clear, technology itself isn't the enemy. Digital tools can be wonderful for maintaining relationships across distances, finding communities of like-minded people, and even with new relationships. I've made some amazing connections through social media that have evolved into deep, meaningful friendships. The problem isn't technology itself, it's how we're using it. A 2019 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that people who had meaningful in-person social interactions showed improved mood and sense of belonging, while those primarily engaged in passive social media scrolling reported increased loneliness and decreased well-being. The key difference seems to be active versus passive engagement. When we use technology actively, to have real conversations, share authentic experiences, or collaborate on meaningful projects. It can enhance our sense of connection. But when we use it passively, mindlessly scrolling, comparing ourselves to others, or consuming content without engaging, it tends to increase feelings of isolation. Let me share a personal example. During the pandemic lockdowns, like many people, I found myself spending hours scrolling through social media. I was technically connected to hundreds of people, but I felt increasingly disconnected and lonely. It wasn't until I started having regular video calls with a small group of close friends where we had real conversations about our struggles, our fears, and our hopes that I began to feel that sense of genuine connection again. What I realized was that real connection requires several elements that often get lost in our digital interactions. Number 1, vulnerability. Sharing our authentic thoughts and feelings, including our struggles. Number 2, presence. Giving our full attention rather than multitasking. Number 3, reciprocity. Both people actively participating in the relationship. And lastly, number 4, continuity. Building on previous interactions rather than fragmented engagement. When our digital interactions lack these elements, they can actually leave us feeling more isolated than before, creating what researchers called the illusion of companionship without the demands of friendship. There's also fascinating research about how technology is changing our in-person interactions. A study from the University of Essex found that simply having a phone visible during a conversation reduced people's sense of connection and empathy. Many of us have probably experienced this, being with someone physically while they're mentally elsewhere, checking notifications or responding to messages. The good news is that we can be more intentional about how we use technology. We can create boundaries around our device use, prioritize active engagement over passive consumption, and use digital tools to facilitate rather than replace meaningful in-person connections. So, what can we actually do about this? How can we combat loneliness and build more meaningful connections in today's world? Here are some research-backed strategies that have helped me and might help you too. Number 1, prioritize quality over quantity in relationships. Research consistently shows that it's the quality, not the quantity, of our social connections that impacts our well-being. Having 1 or 2 people you can truly be yourself with is more beneficial than having dozens of surface-level acquaintances. In practice, this might mean reaching out to a small circle of friends for deeper conversations rather than trying to maintain hundreds of social connections on social media. I've found that scheduling regular check-ins with my closest friends, whether it's a monthly dinner, a weekly call, or even just a meaningful text exchange, helps maintain those deeper connections. Number 2, create context for repeated, unplanned interactions. Some of the most meaningful connections in our lives develop through what sociologists call repeated, unplanned interactions. Regularly running into the same people in contexts where natural conversations can occur. This might mean joining a weekly class or group, volunteering regularly, or even becoming a regular at a local cafe or business. When I joined my weekly choir group, I was focused on learning a new skill. But what I ended up gaining was a community of people I consider friends. It didn't happen overnight. It was the result of seeing the same people week after week, gradually sharing more of ourselves through natural conversations. Number 3, practice vulnerability. Research by Dr. Brené Brown has shown that vulnerability, sharing our authentic selves, including our struggles and imperfections, is essential for deep connection. Yet many of us hold back out of fear of judgment or rejection. Starting small can help. Share something slightly vulnerable with someone you trust and notice how it often leads them to reciprocate, deepening the connection. I remember being nervous about sharing some of my struggle with a friend, but when I finally opened up, not only was she incredibly supportive, but she also shared similar experiences she's been going through. That moment of mutual vulnerability brought us so much closer. Number 4, revive the art of conversation. The ability to have meaningful conversation is a skill that many of us are losing in the age of text and social media. Yet, it's through these conversations that we truly get to know each other. Practice asking open-ended questions that cannot be answered with just yes or no. Show genuine curiosity about other people's experiences and perspectives. Listen actively without planning what you'll say next. One practice that has helped me is putting my phone away during conversations and making eye contact. These simple adjustments have made a huge difference in the depths of my interactions. Number 5, use technology intentionally. Rather than passively consuming social media, use technology as a tool to facilitate real connections. This might mean setting up a video call with a distant friend, joining an online community centered around meaningful discussions, or using messaging apps for conversations rather than just memes or surface updates. I found it helpful to audit my technology use periodically. Which digital interactions leave me feeling more connected and energized? Which leave me feeling drained or more isolated? Then I try to do more of the former and less of the latter. And lastly, number 6, seek support when needed. Finally, if loneliness is severely affecting your well-being, don't hesitate to seek professional support. A therapist can help you work through barriers to connection and develop strategies tailored to your specific situation. Remember, feeling lonely doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It's a normal human experience, especially in today's world. Reaching out for support is a sign of strength, not weakness. These strategies won't eliminate loneliness overnight. Building meaningful connections takes time and consistent effort, but even small steps can begin to bridge the gap between the connections we have and the connections we need. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to share one last thought about this loneliness epidemic. While it's a serious challenge facing our society, I also see it as an opportunity to rethink how we connect and what truly matters in our relationships. Maybe this growing awareness of loneliness is our collective wake-up call, urging us to create a world where authentic connection is valued and prioritized, where we measure success not just by achievement or acquisition, but by the depth and quality of our relationships, where technology serves our human need for connection rather than substituting for it. I believe we're at a turning point. We're recognizing that despite all of our advances, we've neglected something fundamental to human happiness and well-being, our need for genuine connection. And now we have a chance to course correct, to create new patterns and structures that support real human connection in the digital age. This isn't about individual choices, though those certainly matter. It's also about community design, workplace policies, educational approaches, and technology development that prioritize meaningful human interaction. I love to hear your thoughts about this topic. Have you experienced this modern loneliness? What strategies have helped you build more meaningful connections? Share your experiences with me on Instagram at Christine_Dang or check out c-dang.com for more resources. If you found value in today's episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. And if you haven't already, subscribe to The Dang Good Show so you never miss an episode. And for more insights on building authentic connections in the digital age, check out episode 14, Mindful Tech, Balancing Digital Life with Real Connections. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, in a world that can sometimes feel disconnected, every authentic interaction is a small act of revolution. By prioritizing real connection with yourself and others, you're not just improving your own well-being, you're helping to create a more connected, compassionate world. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Much love, CDang signing out. Thank you for joining us on The Dang Good Show. Remember to swing by our website, thedangoodshow.com, where you can easily subscribe on platforms like Apple, Google, and Spotify to keep up with our latest episodes. Loved what you heard today? A thumbs up and a positive review on your favorite listening platform would be incredibly appreciated. And if our show struck a chord with you, sharing it with just one friend can help our community grow and thrive. Thanks once more for lending your ears to me on The Dang Good Show. Until we meet again, take care and goodbye.